महासभाये नमोस्तु रामाय सलक्ष्मणाय देव्यै च तस्यै जनकात्मजायै नमोस्तु रुद्रेन्द्रयमानिलेभ्यो नमोस्तु चन्द्रार्कमरुद्गणेभ्यः अत्यन्तं मुदितः अनुगृहीतः अहं यत् साक्षात् स्वामिचरणानां दर्शनभाग्यं प्राप्तं एतद् बहु वर्षाणाम् अनन्तरम् इदानीं अपि च तेषां समक्षे मम अत्यन्त इष्टविषयः भारतीय विज्ञानस्य आधुनिकप्रस्तुतिः तस्य विषये तैः सह अपि च अकाडेमिक् गणेन सह चर्चितुम् अवकाशः लब्धः तस्य परिणामत्वेन एतत् सत्रम् अपि आयोजितं यस्मिन् मम किञ्चित् यः अनुभवः आसीत् तेन किं कर्तुं शक्यते अग्रे इति किञ्चित् उपस्थापयितुम् अपि अवकाशः दत्तः तस्मै स्वामिचरणानां कृते धन्यवादान् समर्पयामि। नमो नमः। So my name is Sai Ramakrishna Susarla, and I will be talking about our experience, my experience transitioning from a regular mainstream software and R&D area to the realm of Shaastras, and what I was able to, I was identifying as the synergies and what made me actually leave my regular mainstream discipline and get into this area. Not because I don't like the mainstream work, but I saw a huge opportunity for innovation beyond celebrating the past, but actually making of the future. So that is the reason why this transition happened in my life. And I would like to just share my screen. So the topic today is science and Shastra. What are they? What is the difference? What is commonality among them? And how do we blend them? Is it possible to blend them for sustainable innovation? Of course, sustainability is the key word nowadays everywhere, and innovation is the buzzword that has been happening for a long time. So what does sustainable innovation means? Innovation which keeps our humanity sustained for a long time, humanity and the entire nature together, right? So just a quick introduction. I represent a new school of Vedic sciences that was started by MIT group, Maharashtra Institute of Technology group in Pune. Its main objective, this is the first university of one of the few universities who have actually brought in Shastra studies into mainstream university, which offers engineering, arts, design, architecture, those kinds of disciplines, having a full-fledged school or division dedicated to Vedic sciences. Okay, what does sciences mean? We will see. Okay, and we offer three streams of programs. We have taken psychology as an area for immediate impact of enriching modern education, modern knowledge systems with Vedic insights. We have a BSc, MSc, and PhD program also going on, and we have created another new stream under the UGC called Vedic Sciences, which is dedicated to establishing that contemporary impact of Bharatiya Vijnana. We have been running for the last 5 years, and we already have 2-3 batches already graduated, and our clients or students mainly for the undergrad, of course, are the regular 10+2, but for master's programs, they are mostly NRIs or professionals in India and abroad who want to actually understand the Vedic knowledge from the roots by taking advantage of the critical analysis and scientific knowledge that they have, scientific thinking that they have accrued over their careers. So how to ramp them up rapidly to start contributing in this space is what we think about on a day-to-day basis. And we have a program, Masters in Sanskrit MA, which is completely run in Sanskrit medium, and we have more than 60 students in 2 batches so far, all completely immersed in Sanskrit Bhasha. So now, so of course, why study Bharatiya? Wherever you see Indic, just replace it with Bharat in your mind. That's what they actually mean. Why study Bharat's knowledge heritage is that we all know there is a study well understood, cited, of that India was the highest GDP, highest global gross domestic product nation, or one of the first 1 or 2 over the last several millennia until recently, until around 1800. And you cannot remain a developed country. What does developed country mean? Everybody knows that everybody uses our goods. Everybody wants to come to India and be part of our success and get a part of the wealth, etc. That's the reason why invasions happen. So why so many people, so many countries wanted to come to India was, India was not just a spiritual haven. It was also highly successful on the Laukika side as well. And that was across multiple disciplines. And this cannot happen unless you have a systematic way of understanding and exploring knowledge. And that is basically what science is. And so definitely India was the place for science for a long, long time. Okay. Now, what are those fields? And what we see now, what we hear about now are very, very minute glimpse of what was produced. Apparently, there are more than 30 million manuscripts that are not even analyzed till now. Okay, we don't even know some of the we only know the names of about 10 million manuscripts. There are more than 20 million who we don't even know what they are talking about, even the titles. So that much was the intellectual output of Bharat. Even with the few, maybe hundreds of thousands of Shastras or texts which we know today, we have, there is so much what you call excitement about what is available in Bharatiya Vijnana. Imagine there is so much more to explore. So this is actually impossible to explore without some large scale study of these things. And just to give you a quick example of some of these things, which some of the not mainstream examples, you know that Jyotisha can be used to predict weather. And it has been, and they predict weather 1.5 years ahead of time, as opposed to the best meteorological models today, which do maybe 4 or 5 months ahead of time. And this was actually tested, meaning this was actually, there's a paper written on it by National Sanskrit University Tirupati Pandits along with the meteorological department. So that's an example. Another, again, not systematically academically published, is the fact that there are minimum 40,000 documented cases of cancer treatment purely with Ayurveda, where people come to Ayurveda because they have been given up on in the allopathic system, as not much can be done. Such cases were treated. So, and India is the only country which has a Shastra for arts. Okay. Arts are, by definition, art and science, the difference is art means skill to do something. Science is the understanding of the principles behind how the world works, or what happens when you do art. Okay. So India is Bharati is the only country which has a Sahitya Shastra. There is no other country which has a Sahitya Shastra. And India is the only country which has a systematic understanding of what makes something beautiful. Saundaryam, Natya. Natya is nothing but that. Okay. and creativity, systematic understanding of creativity as a scientific pursuit. Okay, so these, and then of course we all know about the Vedic mathematics, or not Vedic, the Leelavati and others, where computational approximate algorithms, numeric computing, which is the basis of all modern engineering. That is in it, and some of these discoveries that we had this kind of work done was discovered very recently, maybe as recent as 1980s and 90s also sometimes. Okay, so there's a lot. Okay, and so let us just to, for our clarity, so that we are on the same page, let us define some words properly. Okay, so knowledge can be divided into three parts: understanding of how to do something, what to, like how to raise a crop, okay, and how to systematize how to make that knowledge and teach others. So one is I am able to do something, that is skill, and how to impart that skill to others, make it systematic such that I can teach to others and actually scale it up, that is technology. And the third is creating new technologies by actually understanding the core, how things work, how the universe or nature works, the principles. So these three together constitute knowledge, and Bharat has contributed in all the places. Modern science also has contributed to all these areas. And when we say the difference between knowledge and knowledge system is that the knowledge system is where the systematization comes, or codification, such that you can actually train others or make new impact. Okay, and India is unique among ancient civilizations in systematization, and that systematization is what we today call as science. And why systematize? Three things. You need to, whenever you are studying something, you want to explain why it works the way it is, why clouds form, why Earth revolves around the sun, what all these things, right? And then predict what will happen in the future. And then, if possible, you can even control how I can harness the power of nature for running my laptop. Okay, that is control. So unless you know the process of electricity, you cannot control. So explain, predict, and control reality is the purpose for which we do all these things. And IKS is the new word that Government of India also is now adopting, Indian knowledge systems. It has an abundant set of models of reality. And today I'm going to talk about science. The commonality between science and Shastra is the model-based way of looking at the world. Okay, and we have lots and lots of models all the way from physics to Paramatma. And why study all these things? The focus, of course, of science is to increase our power of the humanity as a whole, to do things, to make things happen. And the second aspect is that's where technology comes. Technology helps enhance our power in the Shakti, and the Shakti must transform into Shreyas, which is spreading the prosperity among the humankind. And then the Shreyas on spirituality leads us from there to Shanti. Okay, so all the three are important. If you focus on only one of them, we get into trouble, and that's what we are actually seeing now. Excessive focus on Shakti with detriment on the others leads to issues and leads to unsustainable development. And IKS, or Indic knowledge systems, Bharatiya Vijnanam, has contributions in all three areas, as we all know. And as I mentioned, so the overall, basically, Bharatiya Vijnanam, what is the value that we offer? One, of course, spirituality, ethics, value, peace. Systematization of civilizational knowledge. Every world civilization has lived and thrived for millennia. So many civilizations have thrived. They had understanding of nature. But today, the only understanding of nature that we are leveraging is that of Western science. Okay, so that is actually gross underutilization of what the human endeavor did in the past. But now is the time when that kind of thing can also be exploited, and we will talk about why that is possible now. Of course, we have physical science and technology where also Bharatiya Vignan can contribute, as I showed some examples of. Okay, so but why is all this not mainstream? Basically, three things. It is inaccessible to majority of today's population for whatever reasons, historical and political. Unintelligible, it's in an unfamiliar language, and the methodology of its exposition is different from the way we pursue knowledge today, slightly different. Okay, so it's not just the language, but the approach. It also is slightly different. Approach to knowledge and acquisition is different, and it is undeployable as a result, because it is, what does deployability mean? Ability to use that knowledge for doing something worthwhile to the society today, solving some problem. So these three things, unless it becomes accessible at large scale, and unless it becomes intelligible to large set of youngsters, they cannot actually, youngsters have the energy to try 100 ways of doing things and applying whatever knowledge. And unless this knowledge is given to youngsters, we cannot leverage that, right? So, and the problem is that it's not in a form that is attractive to youngsters as of now, because youngsters look for innovation, not what we did in the past, but what can I do now? Okay, and unless we present our knowledge in that way to enable that, it won't work. And so divide is basically that, for whatever, again, historical reasons, Bharatiya Vijnanam has been in a preservation mode right now, on a sustained ventilator mode, where we are maintaining the knowledge just to pass on to the next generation, but not actually utilizing it, which was the case till very recently. And it is not connecting directly with what the mainstream society is looking for. In many cases, only a few of the use cases we know that there is value, but still not utilizing it properly. And entire human energy towards innovation is focusing on what the society seeks: power, prosperity, power, and peace, and in the Western way, of course, right? But unless we transform this knowledge and make it accessible to the innovators, okay, it will not create the impact. And what does this overall knowledge look like? In what are the areas, right? We can, in our Bharatiya perspective, there is always the Triputi. Okay, Jnata, Jnanam, Jnaya. Okay, Jnata is the knower. Jnayam is what is under observation, and the process of observation is the Jnana itself. Process. And Bharat has very immense contributions in all three areas. Modern science typically focuses a lot on the Jnaya aspect, the hard sciences of nature, outside, studying something from the outside. And of course, a little bit of it happens in the human sciences or humanities, which is on the left. But computer science is the first area where we systematically study how to represent knowledge and how to manipulate knowledge in a systematic way. Okay, that has been a recent development. AI is just an example of outcome of that. And so that's what we call as knowledge sciences. And there are Shaastras which actually can help in all three areas. Nyaya, Mimamsa are examples which we have discovered from studying under scholars, that Nyaya, Mimamsa have a lot to contribute in knowledge processing and artificial intelligence. Okay, and then so basically, is Indic knowledge scientific? Yes, it has to be, and it is. And that Indic systematization is what is called a Shastra. And if you look at what is let's look at comparison between the definitions of science and Shastra. So basically, this is the Wikipedia definition: effort to build and organize knowledge as testable explanations and predictions about the universe. Okay, so build and organize, systematization, for two purposes: explanation and prediction. And of course, control is also as a side effect of it, right? Whereas the definition of a Shastra in the traditional definition is, I am not quoting the original. There is an original Shaastric Sanskrit statement which defines Shastram. But so it actually, a treatise that models or characterizes a phenomenon or any reality, any real world thing, for a purpose not achieved otherwise, and to benefit somebody. This benefiting somebody is an additional clause that Shastra adds that science does not. And you can study the same thing, but if you study it for a different purpose, that becomes another Shastra, another science. So the same universe can be studied from the perspective of what is force, how to utilize force, and how to harness force, that is physics. Okay, the same universe can also be studied from the perspective of what is substance, and how substance is formed, and how substance can be composed for different purposes. That is an example of chemistry. Okay, but for what purpose are you studying? Who are you benefiting with this study with? That is very, very important. And if you don't have that, then it might go into the wrong hands or for wrong purposes. That is also there. Okay, and the guidepost is not clear. And Shastra definition adds the third part, adhikari. Okay, and then it also, the whole core of science is modeling. That means characterizing the real world. Like for instance, here. So here is a real world system with a lot of observations about various things. There are hundreds of trees, hundreds of materials. Okay, can I characterize them? Can I say all these materials are just combinations of 500 elements? Okay, that 100 element thing is based on certain understanding, and that is what is a model. Model is a finite or compact representation of whatever you are studying, so that you can do your analysis of it in a more amenable, more easier way. Okay, and every scientific theory is nothing but a model of reality, and that's exactly what a Shastra also does. Now, and there are multiple things, we'll not go into that. And so the method of science is basically to observe phenomena, and in the Shastric terminology, it is called the Lakshya, the one that is seen. Okay, and then you identify the common aspects of that, called the Lakshanas, through which you can group things into categories. And then you can, whatever you can predict about one category will apply to all its constituent elements. Okay, so that is basically the skill of abstraction. How to identify commonalities among seemingly different things. And the opposite one is how to identify differences among seemingly similar things. That is classification. Okay, abstraction and classification is all that science does. And Shastra, there is a Shastra in the Vedic system to teach you how to do abstraction and classification perfectly. That is the Nyaya. So Nyaya is the methodology of model building. So you can use it that way. Of course, if you open the Nyaya books, Granthas, they may not actually say it directly, because they have done all that exposition in a particular context of explaining something. But how to paraphrase it and use it for today is by understanding what they are doing behind the scenes, right? So that is an example. So we can leverage the Nyaya system, Navya Nyaya, for instance, as a model building methodology. What constitutes a good property according which you can categorize the trees of the world, or the mountains, or human beings? How many types of human beings exist? Okay, what is the property by which you can separate them into classes? So that is an example. And then so Lakshana Karanam, it's called Lakshana Karanam in the Shastric terminology. Lakshana Karanam is basically characterization. And characterization is very, very important. And if your characterization method is wrong, you come up with a flawed model of the world, and that will cause problems. That will not help you in your objective of explaining accurately, predicting accurately, and controlling effectively the real world. Okay. So this is the common ground at which modern science and Shastric Shastra can come in and join hands. Okay, the dialogue that today what is happening is, if you take Shastra, it has been doing this in the context that was long past, for conditions which were conducive at that time. But it had an underlying principle which was applied, which we did not get explicated or explained, separated out from the context. So therefore, if you just read Dharma Shastra of the past and versus now, there is you can just, people today brush aside, oh no, that is talking about taking bath in the lake at 4 a.m. in the morning, etc. Okay, but how will I do it in a city environment? Okay, so the question is, unless you take out the core principles and see how they apply in a different condition, okay, you cannot actually make the impact. And modern science is also trying to understand the things, but the difference between modern science and the Shaastric approach is one is piecing together what might be happening behind the scenes from observations, from sensory perception and inference. Those are the two tools of knowledge today. Okay, whereas Indian system, it had some other method of acquiring knowledge, which is today inaccessible because of our lack of that nerve is not trained today. The Ratambhara Prajna, whatever it is, that Atindriya Darshanam, which is beyond inference and sensory perception. Okay, so whatever be the source, ultimately a model can be either a top-down model or a bottom-up model. Bottom-up is from data you come up with a characterization, a classification. Actually, that's precisely what actually big data analytics is all about. It's all about bottom-up analysis, bottom-up model building. Whereas classic approach is to make a guess. Okay, I think that there are only 4 forces in the universe: gravity, electricity, magnetism, and something. Okay, and then based on that, you'll say, okay, how much of the world can I explain using those concepts? So that is the reverse way. That is the top-down principles to explain observations, theory-driven. The Shastra has the ability to do theory-driven models, but tempered by observations. That is the classic example of that is in Jyotisha. There, Jyotisha has a foundational understanding of forces of nature, and then it has mechanisms to correct it based on live observations also. And some of the inaccuracies of Jyotisha today are happening because of, I heard from Pandits, that because it has to be periodically corrected and the recent correction has not yet happened, for instance. Okay, so that is the ability, that's called hybrid modeling. So you do both, you predict something and then you correct it based on live observations. So that kind of approach, that kind of sophisticated thinking was ingrained in the Indian system, Shastra system, from long time back. Okay. And we look at the world from 3 perspectives. I'll skip this for now. And okay, what is all this used for? What is the point of all this? Today, I'm posing a bunch of questions. None of these questions we are able to answer with whatever tools we have today. Okay, and these are all falling into the realm of humanities, and but of course, meaning physical sciences, that's another. I don't want to touch that for now. Okay, ethics. Suppose I make a robot. I want to release it into Japan. It has to operate according to Japanese ethics, Japanese, of course, government rules, but also the notion of ethics. How do you represent ethics? There is no way to represent ethics today. People are just guessing, putting some random rules as of now. They have an ethics standardization committee that recently set up. But those are kind of ad hoc, without understanding, without actually going to the root of what ethics stands for. So how do you represent a country's or a nation's ethical framework in a way such that you can ask a question? I do this act. Is this act ethical according to your system? So for that, you need to have a model of ethics. And Dharma Shastras can be the basis for that kind of a system. that kind of a model. So wellness, how do I personalize my food based on my prakriti? Okay, can I ask a question today? There is no tool available for that. How do you validate whether a judgment is sound in the court of law? Of course, we leave it to the lawyers, but how do you know whether those guys are doing their job well? By only when you represent the entire laws of the system in a framework, in a systematic framework, can you do these kind of things. And that is currently left to humans because there is no codification that a system can analyze. It is not that precise enough. That's why human being is required. But if you have such a precise way of characterizing law, you can actually build automated lawyers, and that is actually being attempted today right now. Okay, and examples like ಗಳವರ, and suppose psychology. I employ somebody. Will this person fit this organization in this particular role? You need to have a model of what a role means. You need to have a model of what a person's prakriti or psychological artifact is, and then whether these two are compatible or not. How to check compatibility between two, a role and a person, or a person and another person. Will this person live happily with this person, bride and bridegroom? Will they be able to make proper life together? You need to understand psychology of A, psychology of B, and of course Jyotisha we are using right now. But Jyotisha is just one aspect, one way of analyzing. There are others. Okay, so how do you represent humans? That's not an answered question today, right now. Okay, so there are many examples of that. For every one of these things, model-based thinking helps, and Bharatiya Vijnana has abundance of models for these things, and we are actually embarking on one such efforts. And I will skip this one for now. And so, how do we actually bring this whole thing into actual action? So where we are right now is on the left. We have a lot of texts which have articulated our Purvajas knowledge and codified them and kept. That's available, luckily for us. Even though many of them might be lost, but they are not in a form that is intelligible to a set of youngsters who are not trained in their thinking process. Okay, because of our education system being completely westernized. Okay, so the current generation need to be presented knowledge in a pictorial fashion for easy assimilation. That's what is that. For whether it is good or bad is a separate question, but that's the reality. Okay, so we need to make the knowledge mineable and inferable. Mineable means queryable, questionable, askable, consultable. Okay, and then we need to now take it from contemporary perspective. Take a discipline like psychology, law, governance, management, and then say which of these knowledge sources are able to contribute to this thing, and present them as models so that you can use them. And what does use mean? Developing an application. Like for instance, I want to have an app, my personal Ayurveda assistant, which tells me before I go to some place whether this kind of food suits me at this time of the day or not. Okay, so that means I need an Ayurvedic model right in my hand. Okay, so of course there are many people are trying different things, like in jurisprudence, because of the number of cases that are piling up. Can something be done to reduce that? That's an example. So we want to convert knowledge into products, services, and experiences, and that's what we do the deployment. And this whole thing requires a massive effort, which requires deep study of Bharatiya Vijnanam by traditional scholars. This is not possible through translations. That is already a given. And then they need to work side by side with contemporary experts, not as in separate silos, but together. This kind of the third part cannot be done unless Shastra scholars and contemporary experts sit together face to face and discuss what you think is this concept is defined as this concept in my system. Okay, and let us come up with a common terminology. And that kind of a discussion only can bring about this thing. And I'm very, very happy to see an organization such as Vishnugupta University, which systematically trains people from the ground to bring that to become experts in the Bharatiya Vijnanam, the Shaastric knowledge, such that the dialogue can happen. And the dialogue requires not only the Shaastric knowledge or Bharatiya Vijnana parampara to be not just preserved but expanded, but to be in connection with the mainstream education system, so that there is a lot of particularities where modern Western science is very good at, and there is a lot of insights, deep insights, where Bharatiya Vijnanam is very good at. Both are required for the impact, future impact, and so this is just my wish that something like this would really actualizing this kind of thing would be very valuable. And India offers an AI-friendly knowledge system. Very important. AI is the future, whether we like it or not. It'll invade our lives, but we have to take the direction in which AI goes by seeding it with proper holistic understanding of ourselves and the world. Okay, and that is where Indic knowledge helps, and that is the future. So we need to think about how to leapfrog, not just catch up with what the West is doing. Okay, how to tell them what they don't know. Not that we also know what they know. That's not enough. We need to tell them what they don't know, such that they will come to learn with us. That is the point. Okay, and that requires us to work together across organizational boundaries. And how there is role for every one of us. Whether you are part of a university, or whether you are a professional, or whether you are a homemaker or a student, every one of us has a role to play. There is a massive amount of work required here. And so far, the traditional approach to knowledge is teach, learn, teach, learn. We want to transform it into learn to utilize, by basically transforming knowledge into paraphrased knowledge to modeled knowledge to applications, which requires entrepreneurs, scientists, professionals, as well as traditional scholars to work together. And to do what? This is basically what it is: Sanskrit-based knowledge to comprehensive models, to deployable technologies on the one hand and integral perspective on the other. For both prosperity and fulfillment, both are possible. And this is the larger picture that which basically the education should focus on how to learn, how to analyze, okay, how to empathize. So these are all fundamental skills, regardless of what subject you study. It doesn't matter. And then what are the sources of knowledge from the Vedic system that we can leverage, and then what do we mean by contemporary innovation, and then how it helps the universe, how it helps the future. So with this, I really am grateful, express my gratitude for this opportunity. There is a lot of detailing to be discussed as we go forward for those interested. This is just my little introduction of what we are thinking. And recently we have started a new basic bachelor's in Vedic sciences, especially targeted at Gurukula students who want to become influencers in the society by getting into the STEM disciplines, science, technology, engineering, management, without losing their traditional living lifestyle. How to do that? So we are in the discussions on that. Thank you. Namaskar.
Hare Rama. Namostu Ramaya Sarakshmanaya Devecha Dasye Janakatmajayai Namostu Rudrayendra Yamanilebhyaha Namostu Chandrarka Marudganebhyaha. सर्वेषां कृते आशीर्वादाः, विशेषतः साई रामकृष्णमहोदयस्य कृते, यः अद्य प्रवक्ता वर्तते। यदा रामकृष्णमहोदयस्य वार्तालापः चलति स्म, तदा पङ्क्तिरेखा अस्माकं स्मृतिपथे समागता। मोक्षेधीः ज्ञानम् अन्यत्र विज्ञानम्। प्रश्नः, विज्ञानं पूर्वतने भारते अवर्तत वा न वा? एषः भ्रमः वर्तते। विज्ञानम् इति एतत् पश्चिमतः भारते समागतं। भारते विज्ञानं नैव अवर्तत। भारते अन्धज्ञानम् एव अवर्तत। एतादृशः भ्रमः वर्तते अद्यतने समये। अत एव एषा पङ्क्तिः प्रस्तूयते अस्माभिः। मोक्षेधीः ज्ञानम् अन्यत्र विज्ञानम्। ज्ञानं विज्ञानञ्च, उभयोः पदयोः मध्ये का समानता, का वा विभिन्नता इत्युक्ते, ज्ञानं मोक्षेधीः ज्ञानं यत् निरुपाधिकं ज्ञानं वर्तते, सहजं ज्ञानम्, आत्मज्ञानं, परमात्मज्ञानं, तत्तु ज्ञानं। विश्वस्य ज्ञानं विज्ञानं, विश्वस्याः सृष्टेः ज्ञानम्। आत्मादन्यत्र यद्यद् वर्तते तस्य सर्वस्य ज्ञानं विज्ञानम्, आत्मनः ज्ञानं ज्ञानम् इति। सृष्टेः गवेषणं तदेव विज्ञानमिति अस्माकं प्राचीनैः पूर्वमेव निर्णीतम्। एतत्तु कोशकारस्य वचनम्, अमरकोशे वर्तते। मोक्षेधीः ज्ञानम् अन्यत्र विज्ञानम् इति अमरकोशे वर्तते। विज्ञानं न नवीनम् अस्माकं कृते। विज्ञानं प्रथमतः एव अवर्तत, अत्रैव प्रथमतः अवर्तत। पश्चिमेषु देशेषु अर्वाचीनसमये विज्ञाने गतिः सम्भूयते, अनुभूयते, परन्तु भारते सर्वप्रथमतया भारते विज्ञानस्य अस्तित्वं प्रकटितम् इति एतत् स्मृतिपथे समायातं। रामकृष्णमहोदयेन साकं वार्तालापः सञ्जातः। केषुचन कतिपयदिनानि एव सञ्जातानि, वार्तालापः संवृत्तः। तेन महान् आनन्दः सञ्जातः अस्माकं कृते। किमिति चेत् आधुनिकशिक्षायाम् अत्यन्तं परिणतः कश्चन शास्त्रेषु आसक्तः भवति। आधुनिकशिक्षा एवं प्राचीनशिक्षा, द्वयोः मध्ये चिन्तनं, किं समानं किं विभिन्नमिति चिन्तनं करोति। स्वीया या अधीतिः तस्य त्यागः न कृतः, तस्य उपयोगः कृतः। कथम् इति चेत्, भारतीयस्य प्राचीनस्य विज्ञानस्य समर्थनविषये, भारतीयस्य प्राचीनस्य विज्ञानस्य अवगमनविषये जनानां सम्मुखे प्रस्तौतुं च उपयोगः कृतः अत्यन्तं समीचीनतया रामकृष्णमहोदयेन। किञ्च सा संस्था, महाराष्ट्रीयतन्त्रविद्यासंस्था MIT, तस्याः कृतेपि महान् आनन्दः अस्माकं सञ्जातः। किमिति चेत् एकः समीचीनः प्रयत्नः, ऋषियुगनवयुगसम्मेलनविषये एकः समीचीनः प्रयत्नः तत्र क्रियमाणः वर्तते संस्थायाः परतः। तत्तु प्रमोदस्थानमेव। अत्यन्तं न्यूनसङ्ख्यायां संस्थाः वर्तन्ते एतादृशे मार्गे ये प्रयतमानाः सन्ति। न्यूनं जनाः सन्ति, अतः महान् आनन्दः। सहृदयता च अस्माकं यः समुद्देशः वर्तते, महाराष्ट्रीयतन्त्रविद्यासंस्थायाः यः समुद्देशः वर्तते, तत्तु एकमेव, अद्वैतं वर्तते तत्र। अतः पूर्णानन्दतया स्वागतं कुर्मः रामकृष्णमहोदयस्य संस्थायाश्च, MIT संस्थायाश्च। अस्माकमेव चिन्तनम् एतत् रामकृष्णमहोदयः सम्बोधयेत्। ये अस्माकं विद्यापरिषदि प्रमुखाः वर्तन्ते, ये विश्वविद्यापीठस्य कार्यकर्तारः वर्तन्ते, तान् उद्दिश्य सम्बोधयतु रामकृष्णमहोदयः। MIT विषये किञ्चित् आलोकः तत्र कर्तव्यः इति अस्माभिः चिन्तितमासीत्। तत् अद्य सञ्जातम्। एतत् न प्रत्यक्षम्, एतत् तन्त्रज्ञानस्य सहायतया सञ्जातं। प्रत्यक्षम् आगमनम् अस्माभिः अपेक्ष्यते। रामकृष्णमहोदयः विष्णुगुप्त विश्वविद्यापीठं प्रति समागत्य यथा तेनैव उक्तं दिनचतुष्टयं तत्रैव उषित्वा तत्र अस्माकम् आचार्यान् अस्माकं विद्यार्थिनश्च सम्बोधयतु। शास्त्रं विज्ञानञ्च, आधुनिकं विज्ञानं, भारतीयं पुरातनं विज्ञानं च। किमिति चेत् तदपि विज्ञानमेव, एतेनापि उत्कृष्टं विज्ञानं तत्। अतः प्राचीनविज्ञानम् अधुनातनविज्ञानं द्वयोः विषये सम्बोधयतु भवान् इति रामकृष्णमहोदयम् उद्दिश्य अस्माकम् आग्रहः वर्तते। और किञ्च अस्माकं परतोपि विष्णुगुप्त विश्वविद्यापीठस्य परतोपि कश्चन नियोगः तत्र गत्वा MIT मध्ये गत्वा तत्र संस्थायाः विषये अध्ययनं कर्तव्यं, ज्ञानं प्राप्तव्यमिति तदपि अस्माकं मनीषा वर्तते, इच्छा वर्तते। समस्ते देशे अस्य प्रकाशः प्रसृतः भवेत्। भारतीयशास्त्राणां, भारतीयस्य विज्ञानस्य प्रसृतिः समस्ते देशे भवेत्। इदमेव अस्माकं चिन्तितम्, अस्माकं सङ्कल्पश्च अयमेव वर्तते। तत्र एतादृशाः आवश्यकाः, रामकृष्णमहोदयस्य सदृशाः विद्वांसः तत्र आवश्यकाः। अतः अधुनातनं विज्ञानम् अधीत्य प्राचीनमपि विज्ञानम् अध्येतव्यम्, उभयोरपि अध्ययनं सहैव भवितव्यं। तेन प्राचीनस्य विज्ञानस्य प्रस्तुतिः कर्तुं शक्या समीचीनतया अधुनातनसमाजे। अतः एतादृशः विद्वांसः, रामकृष्णमहोदयेन सदृशाः विद्वांसः आवश्यकाः इति एतदपि अस्माकं मनसि अस्मिन् समये स्फुरति। किञ्च संस्थाद्वयं, विष्णुगुप्त विश्वविद्यापीठं, महाराष्ट्रीयतन्त्रविद्यासंस्था MIT, संस्थाद्वयं सम्भूय अग्रे गन्तव्यम्, एतदपि अस्माकम् इच्छा वर्तते। परस्परं समालोचनं कर्तव्यं, परस्परं सहयोगः दातव्यः, सम्भूयैव अग्रिमे मार्गे गन्तव्यम् इति अस्माकं मनीषा वर्तते। आशीर्वादाः रामकृष्णमहोदयस्य कृते विशेषतया आशीर्वादाः प्रदीयन्ते। भवतां कृते दीर्घमायुः, आरोग्यं, शक्तिः, महती शक्तिः भगवत्कृपया प्राप्तं भवतु इति अस्माकं विशेषतया आशीर्वादाः संस्थायाः कृतेपि, MIT संस्थायाः कृतेपि। किमर्थमिति चेत् स तु महान् प्रयत्नः, सात्विकः प्रयत्नः, भारतस्य देशस्य कृते आवश्यकः प्रयत्नः, भारतस्य भाग्यमेव तादृशाः प्रयत्नाः। अतः संस्थायाः कृतेपि विशेषतया आशीर्वादाः वितीर्यन्ते। और किञ्च रामकृष्णमहोदयस्य कृतेपि विशेषतया आशीर्वादाः वितीर्यन्ते। भवताम् आगमनस्य प्रतीक्षा वर्तते। विष्णुगुप्त विश्वविद्यापीठमध्ये भवताम् आगमनं शीघ्रतया सम्भवतु इति वयम् आशास्महे। सर्वेषां कृते आशीर्वादाः। हरे राम।